Hello, everyone. Good morning. Can I please get your attention? I'd like everyone to settle down, please. Turn off your phones. And we're going to start this morning with Flusk, represented by Victor Newell. Can we please get a round of applause?
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, like most people in this room, probably, I wake up every morning thinking of the Roman Empire. And one quote I really like from this era is a quote from Juvenal, where he compares the likeliness of finding a rare and beautiful woman to the likeliness of finding a black swan. Now, a black swan might seem a little bit odd to you, and this is because black swan used to be the ancestor of when pigs fly. In French, quand les poules auront des dents. Indeed, we used to believe at that time that black swan didn't exist. We used to believe that they were impossible. Until this man, Willem de Vlaming, a Dutch explorer, one day goes to Australia, and guess what? He finds out about a black swan. Not only he is amazed, but he also brings back the black swan all the way back to Europe to show it to everyone. And everyone is in shock because for the first time they saw a black swan. And since then, we don't refer to an unlikely thing as a black swan. The funny thing about it, because there's a funny thing about it, is that this event was actually very predictable. We had pink and white swans, so why not a black one? We also had other animals that existed in black. And especially at that time, we were discovering new environments and spaces. Yet the idea of a black swan was impossible. And when the event reveals, we didn't refer to black swan as black swan anymore. And this is the very foundation of the black swan theory that was brought back by Nassim Taleb, and it has three components. The first one is predictable science that leads eventually to an unlikely or impossible event. When this reveals, consequences happens, and eventually these consequences, you can't see, but they turn into change. And this particular pattern, we can actually see it in a lot of common events that we all know about, namely, for example, COVID-19. COVID-19 was actually very predictable. We had previous disease that existed, such as Ebola in Africa, for example. We also know that we're in the middle of globalization. People travel in and out from countries every single minute and second of the day. And lastly, we also had wet markets in China. That makes it very easy for viruses to go from animals to human. And yet, the thought of a global pandemic was very unlikely in our heads, and it happened. And the consequences, we all know. But this also brought change, and especially in this room, we all know that the change was remote working. Since then, we figured out that working from home was actually possible. And we also figured out that a lot of people, especially in the US, resigned and quit their job. This was because they were forced to reflect on their quality of life. And for the first time, they quitted the job not only for financial reasons, but also for well-being reasons. Another event that we all know about is the 9/11 attacks. This actually was also very predictable. We had growing terrorism threat against the US. we also had, especially at that time, very little airport and flight security. And lastly, we had previous bombings and attacks in New York in the years before. Yet the idea of someone actually taking a plane and crashing it into a building was impossible. The consequences we all know about, but it also brought change, fortunately, which is increased flight security. And this is the reason why probably when you fly today, you spend as much time in the airport than you spend in the flight itself. And today, in the no-code ecosystem, we just had our very first black swan moment. I see some faces lighting up as I show the logo. But for those who have no idea what this is, this will make sense in a few minutes. Good morning, I'm Victor from Flusk. And together at Flusk, we are changing the way we go about cybersecurity in the no-code tools. So let me make an autopsy of this very first black swan. So first, as a cybersecurity company, I would just like to disclaim that we are not going to reveal any private or sensitive information. We are just here as an observer, as an external observer, just as you. And we will solely rely on public information. So let me tell you the story of Louis. Louis is an entrepreneur. Probably like most of you in this room, he has great ideas. He wants to make a difference and he wants to change the world. Right? Yeah. And one day, he wakes up with one idea, and this idea is about an app. But Louis doesn't know how to code, so he finds out about an agency. This agency is going to build the app for Louis. And it turns out this agency is a Bobo agency. The app will be made in no code. After only a few weeks of development, the app is published. The dream for Louis is becoming reality. Until one morning, he wakes up and finds out about this. Oh, I missed the slide, and it's a good one. So what is the app exactly about? You're wondering, right? The app is a dating app for right-wing people. And it's working. After only a few weeks, he managed to make partnerships with leading political figures in France, and it attracts a lot of users. Right-wing people are meeting on the app, and right-wing couples are being made. So Louis had a dream, and now it's becoming true. It's becoming reality. He's slowly shaping the future of France with his app. Until one morning, when he wakes up and finds out about this. This is a tweet from Mathis Hamel, where he says, "Hey, Droite, the name of the app. Maybe it would be nice to take a look at cybersecurity. Because right now, the entire database is leaking. Sexual orientation, marital status, email addresses, everything is out there." And not only he published it, but he also attached a screenshot of the data leak and some public members' profiles. Unfortunately for Louis, the tweet is not going in the right direction. At the time I'm speaking now, it has reached 5 million views. If you're wondering what 5 million views is, it's 10% of France. It's half of Belgian people that have seen the tweet. And obviously, with the tweet making so much noise, it attracts also the media. After only a few days, mainstream media in France start to relay the information, and publish articles about the event. And the salt on the wound for Louis is when the CNIL is getting involved. So for the non-French speaker in the room, the CNIL is the French Data Law Enforcement Agency. It's the police for data and privacy online. And trust me, you really don't want these people, even though they're nice, to get involved with your app and request an audit on your app. The consequences are immediate for Luis, because only after a few hours, tons of fake members and profiles are joining the app. They start to harass the actual members, people that were actually using the app, which eventually decide to exit the app because they're concerned for their privacy and also for their security. Because it turned out that in the data leak, their personal and private home address, postal address, was also leaking for some members. So Louis had a dream. He has a big idea, and he managed to make it live using an agency until one day when the hacker reveals a data leak. And the consequences for Louis are not only the users leaving the app, but also legal and administrative consequences. Louis had a big dream, and now he has a scandal to manage. Now he has a scandal on his shoulder. I know this is heavy, I know this is a lot, but what does it mean now? Because obviously this raises a lot of questions. Does that mean no code is going to go? Does it mean Bubble or other no-code tools are not secured? I don't think so, and I think most of you in this room will agree, because no-code is a revolution. It enables people with very little technical knowledge to make apps by themselves. People like my mom can now make apps by themselves. My mom actually has a Bubble app, and it has made app development so much cheaper and faster. So it is changing the way we go about app development. But I think if we want to move forward in the right direction, we have to admit that in this room, in the no-code ecosystem, we have a problem. And the problem, I'm going to take an example to show it to you. For example, on Bubble, if you want to make a secure app, you have to think about a lot of stuff, actually. You have to think about data APIs being properly secured. You have to think about API workflows being secured as well. You have to think about defining privacy rules that are secured and top-notch so that no data will leak. And you also have to think about potentially people that are going to parse the JSON file of your app to find sensitive stuff like a bearer token, then find access to third-party software, and make actions you don't want them to make. And I think this is far too complex. This is far too complex, especially because Bubble and no-code tools are designed to be simple, and yet security is nearly impossible. And if you have to remember something, it's definitely just the next slide. And this is what I call the seat belt problem. Because Droite wasn't wearing a seatbelt. And I think we can all agree that if you've never seen a car accident or a car crash, most of us wouldn't be wearing a seatbelt either, right? And this is also the problem we have in no-code tools, because people just don't know about security. And thankfully, this wasn't a big crash. What just happened with Droite was just a minimum accident. The consequences were minimum. No one was injured. We just had a fender bender. En français, un accrochage. But I think this, in this room, should be for us a warning shot. Because the hacker had actually good intentions by revealing the leak, and he was, I think, also trying to make a buzz out of the political aspect of the situation. But maybe he could have had bad intents. In other words, Droite wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and this made us wonder at Flusk, how many of us are actually wearing a seatbelt? Because we know, and we knew that most of the bubble apps weren't really secured, and indeed we also made apps that weren't really secured, but we couldn't tell people just out of assumptions. We needed facts and we needed evidences. So we decided to take the top 100 apps made on Bubble and conduct a study. We took them one by one and we looked if they had any security vulnerability. Now again, as a cybersecurity company, I would like to mention that before publishing the study, we contacted every single app owner and we offered them free help to solve the issue. And we didn't publish the study until we made sure that everything was fixed. And what we found wasn't really pretty. On the top 100 apps, 76% of them had a sensitive data leak. Meaning, user first name, last name, email addresses, sometimes pictures of ID cards or even social security numbers, we had access to this. We also found out that more than half of them had compromised access. We could take actions that we weren't supposed to take. We found private and professional videos. We found third-party access. We could literally transfer money to our bank account. We also found compromised admin dashboards. We had the keys of the castle. We could take any actions, and there was nothing they could do about it. In total, it's almost 89% of the apps that we studied that had at least one critical security vulnerability. In other words, 89% of us weren't wearing a seatbelt. And this is our problem. Because no-code is rising. In the last 3 years, the amount of users on Bubble had doubled, meaning the amount of people making apps had doubled. And if we're all driving at such a high speed, if no-code is moving so fast, and yet, if no one is wearing a seatbelt, I think we can all see the signs of the inevitable. Because one day, someone is going to crash into the wall, and this time, this won't be a warning shot. This time, there will be consequences. And this is why we, at Flusk, have decided to build FluskVault. FluskVault is the #1 security tool for Bubble apps on the market. And I don't know if you remember all these complicated things you needed to know in order to make your app secured. Well, you don't really need to anymore, because FluskVault does it for you. Every single one of them.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yeah.
Really, every one of them?
Yes, every single one of them. We managed to automate in a tool more than 20 security checkpoints. And it's all automated, meaning it's the only way really to put human mistake completely out of the way. And we are proud to be the winners of the Bubble Awards of this year, during which we won the Bubble Trailer Blazer Prize for pushing the limits of no-code and Bubble. And we are even more proud to be trusted by hundreds of entrepreneurs and companies, including companies from the Fortune 500. Because we think, and we believe at Flusk, that we should make security as simple as making a no-code or a Bubble app. And I think we all agree in this room that no-code just need a little bit more trust. If you're an agency, for example, it might be hard sometimes to sell a project. It might be hard for someone to base their entire business model on a no-code tool. And if you're an entrepreneur and if you build an app on Bubble, it might be hard for you to find investors. But I think we can all make a difference. I think we can all build this trust together. And if you're wondering how, well, if you're an agency, please integrate security in your work. And please train your developers. We're about to release a top-notch, really cool course about security with Gigi Englert that I really recommend. And if you are this no-code developer, then please tell your clients about security. Please tell them about the seatbelt, because they won't know otherwise. And if you are a content creator, if you're an educational agency or company, well, first of all, thank you. Because if we're all here in this room, it's partly because of you. Thanks to you, I should say. We all learned Bubble and no-code thanks to your courses and your videos. But I think we should make security as primary as design. So please start and continue to make courses about security. Now, if you want to make a difference today, it's also possible. If you want to help us raise awareness, you can have a look under your seat and you will find your very own seatbelt. You can have a look under your seat. Now, consider this a free and safe ride, because at the end of the day, we will be picking someone that is still wearing his seat belt, and not only we will reimburse the entry ticket for the no-code summit, but also you will receive an invitation for dinner with Wesley and I in our favorite restaurant in Paris. Thank you for joining me this morning. Wesley and I will be at the Flusk booth the entire day. We are very friendly and we love making friends, so please come and have a chat. We also will have apples and hopefully alcohol-free wine that you can eat now at 10 a.m. Drink at 10 a.m. And if you liked what you heard this morning, then I suggest that you join Wesley tomorrow for an exclusive demo of our new monitoring tool for Bubble apps. And believe me, this is going to be a little revolution you don't want to miss. Thank you. We don't have time for questions, but this is break, so we actually have time for questions. So if there are some questions, I'm just going to take a 5-second break, but you can raise your hand and we will bring you a mic. Please consider that people on the live stream are listening also, so put the mic really close to your mouth. And oh, we have a first question.
Thank you for the presentation. So
Welcome.
my question is, are you guys growing into other low-code platforms other than Bubble, since there are a lot of tools nowadays are growing in terms of app builders? Up until now, we've never seen anything like Flusk for apps such like Webflow or Glide or any other tools.
Right, thanks for the question. Well, the thing is, there actually are other tools that do it for other no-code tools. I'm thinking of NCScale, for example, which is a really great tool. But we, for now, decided to keep Bubble as the primary tool that we're going to manage and monitor. And this is because we believe that if we want to make a tool about security, it really has to be top-notch. And we can't leave any mistake in the way. So if we start to make security for Bubble and then Webflow and then Xano and then everything, just I don't think we can be as precise as what we do with Bubble. So for now, we're going to stay with Bubble, but it might change in the future. Any other question? Don't be shy, please.
Hi, thank you again. What is the next goal, the next step for Flusk? You had the prize for Bubble, you have the tool now. How do you see the future? Just with upgrades, or are you planning new thing? And if so, can you tell us?
Yeah, sure, I will. So we're constantly monitoring for new security vulnerabilities with Bubble, so we can keep the tool really up to date. That's really the main goal for us. We are releasing next month a new part of the tool, actually. That's what Wesley is going to show you tomorrow. We're also going to focus on monitoring, because now making security, especially on Bubble apps, was complex, but also keeping track of your app is another problem, meaning if an error happens, if someone is trying to pay something on your app and there's an error, you might never know about it. So we managed to make a tool that will take screenshots of all the errors, and you can have them in a dashboard so you can fix everything. And that's, for us, the next step, really. Thank you. I see that everyone is eager to go for the break. We have a question here.
Hello. I'm just curious if you had to quantify in terms of like mistakes people make, how much of these mistakes can be remedied just by privacy laws? Would you say it's like an 80-20, that if you have good privacy rules, that's already 80%? Or what percentage can be solved just by having very good privacy rules?
That's a good question, and I don't think I can give you a precise number, but privacy rules is really the key for data, meaning if your privacy rules are properly defined, there will be almost no risk for data leaks, that's for sure. But there are also other threats and other issues. For example, if you don't secure your page properly, then someone might gain access to your admin page, or they might take actions that you don't want them to take. So they're actually, I think, data privacy, the privacy rules is just one among 20 other things that you can mess up in your app. But realistically, it's also the hardest to just get to know and really design properly. So, yeah. Thank you. We also have a question here, I think.
Hi, so my question is about how can an app built in Bubble can be monitored or audited by Flusk? Is it, are you collaborating directly with Bubble, or are you contacting, for example, all the applications that are built with Bubble to make sure that they are fully secured?
So if I understand well, you're asking if we collaborate with Bubble?
Or all the apps built in Bubble. So if an application that is built with the Bubble, am I asked to contact you to do the audit, or I just rely on Bubble to have all the tools or set up all their parameters to be secured? So just to understand your scope of work, actually.
Right, so you can actually make an app by yourself, and just solely rely on Bubble. But if your technical knowledge about Bubble is, let's say, beginner or intermediate, I would recommend that you maybe use a tool like us or like NC-Scale to make sure that there's no like privacy or data or anything about security issues. But you don't have to. And we are not working with Bubble. We're just a third-party software. We're working now with a partnership with Bubble, but it's just a draft at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. We have 2 more questions in the back and 5 more minutes, so we have enough time for all the questions.
Hello. Thank you for the presentation. And what is the business plan with Flusk? If we are an agency, we have a lot of clients. And do you have, we must have to pay for each client, or you have a solution for agency?
Well, pricing is actually always tricky for us because we're selling security and it's always tricky to sell security. Especially because we want to keep security accessible to everyone. We could make it like a tool that is only for the top apps. We have like that they have to pay a lot of money, but I think it's not fair. So what we tried initially to do is that you would pay based on your company size. So if you're a single entrepreneur, you will pay 60 euro, and if you're a big company, you'll pay 1,000 euro. But it felt like we were a bit more fair than people were, so it didn't work properly. So now we're working on a new pricing model that everyone will pay the same regardless of their size. For agency, it's a bit different, obviously, because they process and they build a lot of apps. So we also have an agency plan that is being designed at the moment, and it's basically a monthly membership for unlimited amount of apps that they can audit and secure. Thank you.
Hey, yeah, I'm also coming from the agency, so I'm very interested in the agency plan. So good to know you have something in the making. My question was from a bit of a different perspective, from the perspective of your application itself. You're obviously building on Bubble, but probably there's something else under the hood. So can you tell us, like percentage-wise, how much of it is it built without code? And what is there any portion of, and how big is it that was built with code or with some other tools that are in between Bubble and Flusk? Thank you.
Really good question. Thank you. And the funny thing is, Bubble itself couldn't really believe it at the beginning, but it's 99% no code. So we didn't write almost a single line of code, which is kind of cool to see that we can build tools for no-code tools that are also made in no-code. But it's the front end is just Bubble. There's no really data going on Bubble, and everything, all the data is in Xano. All the processing part is in Xano, and for the most complex things, it's just like custom code servers. And this we had to do also because of GDPR, because the tool is GDPR compliant. So we had to host data in Europe. Yeah. Welcome. Thank you. All right, last question, or last 2, and then we're gonna make a stop to this talk.
Thank you. I have a question for people that are not comfortable with security awareness of Bubble Apps. Like, yeah, the question that you get before. Are you working with trusted partner or technical partner that can make like audits of people and of application for people that are not aware of security flows and which are not comfortable of using Flusk maybe because they are afraid of what kind coming in the face, like Swagger file, they don't know Swagger file, and so on and so on. Are you working with a partner?
So indeed, some people don't want to use our tool because, first of all, you also have to give some kind of access to us to look into your app and see if there's security issues. So some people, especially some corporate people, might not be willing to do that. Now you don't need to anymore. We don't require any access to your app in order to secure it. And we provide also audits, like manual audits. That's another service that we have. And we basically check thoroughly every single part of the app in a human way. So that's also a service we do. Otherwise, educational-wise, we don't really have courses or things, but we have a really good course with Gigi Englert in the making, and with Otto in French that are coming soon. So hopefully that also helps raise awareness. Maybe we can raise to the last question. Yeah.
Hello. I just wanted to know if you think that in the future, what your company is doing should be included natively in all the no-code platforms, or if you think in the next 10 years it will still be handled by third software companies like yours. Thank you.
It's a good question, because it's a bit like the trains in France. Should they be private or should they be owned by the government? Because we might get better service if it's a private company, because obviously there's competition, so we want to reach really the top services. But I think also Bubble should integrate it. That's true. I think both would be great. I think if Bubble had his part, that would be great. And if private companies like us or NCScale can keep doing works like that, then we will have competition with Bubble itself for security, which I think will be making everyone's service better in the end. Thanks for joining. Have a nice day.